Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel, Life as a Law Student. For those of you who are new, my name is Nicole and I'm headed to law school this fall. Today I'm very excited to get to talk to a very special guest. This is a Los Angeles criminal defense attorney. His name is Arash Hashemi, and he's going to introduce himself, give some of his experience and qualifications, and then we're going to debate a little bit about the ethics behind criminal defense versus criminal prosecution, and hopefully come to some common ground of what we both believe in the American justice system to represent and the ideal way that we can work within it. All right, so over to you.
Thank you for having me. Yes, my name is Arash Hashemi. So I've been an attorney for 17 years, and I've been doing criminal defense for that long. Interesting fact you didn't know, when I was in law school, I interned for the DAs, and I actually wanted to be a prosecutor.
Really?
I did, and then after I interned for them, I decided that I don't want to be a prosecutor.
Okay, fair enough.
So, yeah, I've been doing it for 17 years. I enjoy it. It's lots of fun. I'm glad to be here so you can pick my brain. I'm going to let you ask the questions.
All right, sounds great. So based on just that introduction, my first question that I have for you is, what about interning for the district attorney's office made you flip to the other side?
Basically, it was the red tape and the bureaucracy, and I appreciate it because there's a chain of command there. You have the district attorney, and you have all the deputy district attorneys, and according to your ranking. But I felt you didn't have the freedom to prosecute the case how you wanted, or prepare for the case the way you wanted to. Obviously, I wasn't the one prosecuting them. I was just an intern.
Right.
But I could see that, and I didn't enjoy it. I didn't like it at all. Didn't feel right. So here I am.
Did you grow up knowing that you wanted to do criminal law or become an attorney?
Yes. So I wanted to be in the NBA. Everybody asked me this, but I wanted to be in the NBA when I was a kid, and I'm a big Lakers fan. And when I was, I think in the 7th, 8th grade, there was this family doctor who was a basketball fan. Him and I used to talk about the Lakers all the time. And he asked me one day, what do you want to do when you grow up? And I said, I want to be in the NBA. And he said, oh, it's too hard. The NBA it's too hard to get in the NBA. It's too much competition. You should be an attorney. And I said, what?
That's quite a different
field. He said, you should be an attorney. You like to talk and you like to argue. You should be an attorney. And something just clicked in my head. And I said, oh, I'm going to be an attorney. I didn't know what I had to do. I didn't know what the LSAT was, none of that. I wanted to be an attorney, and I wanted to be a criminal defense attorney, or being in that field, because all the TV shows and everything like that, the romanticism that goes along with it. So I had no other desire to do anything else but then be an attorney.
Growing up, I always wanted to be involved with the law at some point or another. When I was little, I wanted to be like a detective or a judge, and It wasn't until later I understood the legal system a little bit better I wanted to go into criminal law. So what about criminal defense makes you want to stay in it for 17 years at this point, and I'm assuming continuing going forward?
Well, I enjoy it.
Okay.
I enjoy it. It's fun. But don't get me wrong, it's lots of stress. People don't realize how much stress attorneys have on them. And I'm not saying that because I want them to feel sympathetic for us. We choose this field, but it's not like smooth sailing that everybody thinks. So there's lots of stress. It's fun. And I get to play detective. I get to look at my cases. I get to try to figure out what really happened. So, like you said, I get to be a detective. I get to be a lawyer. I get to be all those things wrapped in one. And it's just a challenge. The challenge is what makes me do it. I like the challenging cases because I have a competitive nature. I wanted to be in the NBA, and this is my NBA, so I want to be the best that I can be. That's why,
That's awesome. So doing a little bit of research on Arash before I came over, I saw that you had been quite a voice for criminal defense for the last decade or more. I've seen a lot of news reports with your name in it, or giving perspective of a criminal defense attorney, especially with the recent prolific cases involving the college scandal.
Right.
So how did you get to the point of where people are coming to you to ask to give a glimpse behind the scenes of that?
Honestly, I don't know, but The more you talk to people, and it's not just in the law industry, in any industry, the more you talk to people, the more you get to learn about people and they learn about you. And, you know, if they have a question or something in the back of their mind, they're like, oh, I need an answer. Who can I call? And I guess I popped in their head and they called me. But I'm very thankful for it. I'm very appreciative. And I hope that people continue reaching out to me if they have any questions.
Yeah, great. What's one question that you feel like you get asked a lot?
Oh, as soon as they find out I'm a criminal defense attorney, their question is, what's your most interesting case? That's the first question they ask all the time, especially people who are not lawyers. And if they are lawyers and they don't do criminal defense, they still ask that question.
Sure. Well, then you got to give us the most popular answer if you're going to lead with that.
Well, the most popular answer that they're all the same. I hate to say it, but after a while, it becomes normal. So a case that's very sensational or very dramatic to lay people, to me, it's become just another case.
Sure.
That doesn't mean I don't care about the case or I don't care about my client or how I want to pursue that case. It just becomes work. It's normal. But if I do take a step back and I look at it, a lot of them are very interesting. And I guess that's why it goes back to your other question, why do I keep doing it? Because they're interesting. They're interesting situations that people are put in.
Well, the $1 million question for me coming to talk to you was definitely going to be based around the ethics behind criminal defense. And I'm the first person to say, I actually get asked a lot as somebody who wants to go into criminal law of, well, do you think that it's ethical? Or if you were going to be a criminal defense attorney, would you defend someone who you knew was guilty or who told you they were guilty or whatever?
Right.
And I feel like I am pretty solidified in my backing of criminal defense attorneys. I think it's a really important part of the system, but obviously it's not the field I'm going in. So I'd love to hear your answer as somebody who probably has to wrestle with that on a daily basis.
Well, that's probably the second most popular question.
Sure.
Or it would be a tie for first. How can you do it? How can you do what you do? And like I said, when I first started, or when I first got the idea of being a lawyer, I had no clue what it was like. Then I decided I want to be a lawyer, went through the process, and I still didn't know. I wanted to be a criminal defense lawyer, but I still didn't know what it took to be a criminal defense lawyer. And that's one of the things that everybody struggles with. That's why a lot of people don't do it, is how can I defend this person when I know they did this, or they're accused of this heinous crime? How can I do it? Well, it goes back to the simple law of the land. You're innocent until proven guilty.
Right.
It's not my job to prove my client is innocent. It's the prosecution's job to prove they're guilty. And also, you have to be able to separate yourself, your emotional feelings, when it comes to doing your job. Some people might not agree with me, but that's the way you have to do it. I'm an attorney. My job when I am representing that person is to be their attorney, to make sure the system works correctly, not just for them, but for the entire population. So I have to separate my emotions, meaning that if I don't like this person, not just because of what they're accused of, maybe I don't like their personality, maybe I don't like them, I have to separate that from my ability to be able to represent them. So that's going to help. And one of the other things, here's a story for you. When I was a young attorney, I worked for this really famous criminal defense attorney, and he used to throw me in the fire. He used to tell me, go here and do that, go here and do that. One day he asked me to appear on a 4-defendant case in CCB. It was 4 women, and they were all accused of these crimes. So I went there, the youngest attorney out of the 4 attorneys that was there. It was just simple continuance. Continued the case. The client was in custody, and she kept telling me, I want to talk to you, I want to talk to you. So afterwards, I went in the back, in the holding area, and she's behind the bars, and she's crying and telling me, you got to get me out of here. I'm in here with murderers, with rapists, people who have AIDS, HIV. She's crying, you know. Tell him he has to get me out of here. So I got really emotional, and I really felt bad for her. So I came outside. I called my boss, And he told me, how did the case go? And I told him what happened, and I told him her messages, and I never forget. He said she should have thought about what she did when she did it, if she didn't want to be in jail right now. It's not your fault to change the past. It's not your job to change the past. It's your job to help her. So that actually helped me, and I never forget that, because some people think that it's our job to come in and try to explain the past or erase it, or we only have certain facts to work with. We just got to make sure that the prosecution and the system in itself, because we're part of the system as well, are doing the job right to protect not just the client's rights, but everybody else's rights as well.
So something that you mentioned a little bit earlier was about how TV and movies really romanticize the courtroom or the process, and I completely agree. I only spent a few months in the district attorney's office, and it was clear like day one that was not how it worked. But I still do watch a lot of courtroom dramas because it's fun and it's a field that I'm interested in. And one of the recent ones that I've been watching is called For the People. Have you heard of it or watched it? Okay, that's totally fine. It's about like young attorneys in New York, basically. But it looks at the defender's office as well as the prosecutor's office. And something I remember from the very first episode that one of the characters said in the defender's office was, just get a win. Whether it's a small win or a big win, your job is to get a win for your client.
Right.
Whether that's a lower sentence or completely getting off or whatever it is, get a win. So what would you describe as a win for a client that you have?
It's a good question. So it all depends on the client and the case.
Sure.
One time we had a 4-defendant attempted murder case. My guy was designated as the getaway driver. And they were all 4 of them were young. I think 2 of them were under 18, and my guy was the oldest. He was 18, and the shooter had just turned 18. By the time the case finished, they were all adults.
Sure.
But they were all facing 25 to life.
Okay.
We worked the case. They came back at us with an offer of, I think, 26 years.
Okay.
And then we worked the case even more, and I was able to get my client 6 years.
Okay.
Now, 6 years in prison is not a joke.
Absolutely not.
But both my client and I were very happy.
It's way better than 25 to life.
Exactly. So that was a win. It was a win not just for me, but for my client.
Right.
He was 19 at the time, and he could have been sentenced to 26 years or 25 years to life,
right.
And instead he only got 6 years. It was a win. So that's a win.
Sure.
It doesn't necessarily mean the case gets dismissed or the charges get dropped, but as long as you win in a way where it's satisfactory, not just for you but for your client, then that's a win.
Yeah. Okay, so let me play total devil's advocate here.
Okay.
Let's use that case as an example. Let's say that your client was 100% guilty, had all this intent. You could reasonably predict that this person, when they come out of jail, is not going to change anything. What do you see as the ethics behind making sure that that person is out in 6 years versus stays away from society for life? Because I think some people would hear that story and argue, well, maybe it's a win for you and your client, but that's a loss for society or future victims or anything like that.
But that requires you to have the gift of seeing into the future. First of all, it's not my job to rehabilitate my client.
Sure.
My job is to defend him in the case that and in the charges that he's being charged with. Now, when he goes to prison, is it my job to make sure he does what he's supposed to do in prison? No. I'm not a prison guard. I'm not the warden. I'm not the government. Do I want him to rehabilitate? Yes, of course. Everybody does.
Right.
Will he rehabilitate? I don't know. So you can't think like that. And
sure.
I don't think anybody could think like that because it's not my job. It's not my job. You know, what if you want to go grab drinks after here with your friends? And I'm the bartender and you come and I say, you know what, this girl looks like that she doesn't know how to handle her drinks if I give her too many drinks, she's going to get in the car, get in an accident, and kill somebody, so I'm not going to serve her any drinks. You can't think like that.
Right.
So I understand what you mean, and a lot of people think in that way, but if you are in the justice system, if you're a lawyer, you think like that, then, well, first of all, I think when you go to law school, you'll see. One of the first things they told us in law school is, once you're finished with law school, you will never think the same, meaning your thought process changes.
Right. So
a lot of people who ask those questions, like, how could you defend this person? You know they're guilty, and you know they're going to do it again. A lot of them aren't in the legal field because they haven't had that legal training where their thought process changes.
Right.
But it goes back to, it's not my job. You can't do that. If it would be, what was that Tom Cruise movie where they were predicting somebody's going to commit a fraud or a crime? Even if you want to be a prosecutor, you can't think like that.
Absolutely.
Because then that will cloud your judgment in prosecuting that person for that particular charge. Because you will go, you know what? If this person was charged with doing this crime, then that means they're going to do it again because they're a horrible person. So I'm not going to look at these facts the way I should. Even though you might not admit it to yourself, you won't. And you're going to try to put that person in prison for a longer period than they should be going to because you think that, oh, they're going to do it again.
Right. Have you ever turned down a client based on the facts of their case or your interpretation of their probable guilt?
Yes. Sometimes, and this is very common, you get people who come in and they are charged with a crime, and they feed you so much, and they hope that you can buy it. They're trying to sell it to you because they think if you buy it, you're going to turn around and sell it to the judge and sell it to the jury. And you can tell when people are lying. You'll become good at it. And I've turned them down because I know that their case is bad, and I know they're lying about it. And I know that they don't want to help themselves, so I've turned them away. That's another thing about being on your own, or being on this side. I can turn down cases.
Right.
If I'm a district attorney,
you're stuck with what you get.
You're stuck with what you get. So that's one of the advantages. Yes, I've turned down many clients.
Yeah. What would you say is the ideal client that you represent?
I like the more complicated cases where the guy is accused of something and he really didn't do it.
Okay.
Maybe
innocent clients are ideal.
Innocent client. Maybe they're there at the wrong time, or they were arrested for the wrong reason. So those are my ideal ones, because once you win those cases, it makes you really feel good, because those people, you really protect them and their lives from being devastated.
Right.
I also like clients who maybe they did do something, or they're at fault for doing something, but they have a good reason for it. Doesn't justify their acts, but there's a good reason for it, so that could help them. My ideal client would be someone who's innocent. All the facts are there, and they pay me a huge retainer.
Hey.
and I can only go. I only have to go to one court appearance and get the case dismissed. That's my ideal client.
So I'm going to law school this fall, and I want to be a criminal prosecutor. Based on those two things, what advice do you have for me going into law school or looking at different internships or career paths?
Okay, so law school will teach you the law. They won't teach you how to be a lawyer. Being a lawyer is different than just going to law school. That doesn't mean don't take your classes seriously. But if you have an opportunity like you did to intern for the DA's office, or intern with even a criminal defense attorney's office or something like that, take those opportunities. See how being a lawyer really is like, not just reading from a book and things like that. Because everybody wants to do a certain legal field, but once they get their feet wet, they change their mind. Not that you will, but take that opportunity to get your feet wet and see what it really is like to be in that field. Get as much exposure as you can. Go for a jail visit if you can. Go for a ride along if you can. Whatever you can get, try to do it. And have that experience, so when you come out, or you have an idea of what it's going to be like.
So before we go, I definitely want to give Arash a chance to explain his podcast. That was actually how we connected. Was I found him on Instagram. I saw that he had this awesome podcast going and talking to people from all over the legal field. I'm very excited. Right after we finish wrapping this video, I get to be on the podcast, and I'm just like, woohoo! So I'd love for you to kind of explain the audience for that,
Right.
who it's ideal for.
So my podcast is called Hashing Out the Law, and I wanted to have a podcast, but I didn't want it to be just two lawyers sitting down and talking legal jargon. So every episode has a different guest. Some are lawyers, some aren't lawyers, some have been lawyers before and they quit. It's made for everybody. It's made for lay people, people who are interested about learning about the law. And the show is not just talking about legal issues, but how the law affects us in everyday life. It's all kinds of people that listen to my show, and it's designed for all kinds of people.
Yeah, I think it's awesome. I have recently been getting really into podcasts, so I started listening to, I think, the first one, and I'm very ready to like binge all of it because I just love hearing different perspectives about the law. Any last things that you want to say to everybody?
Well, thank you for having me on. It was a pleasure. I wish you luck in your endeavor, and hopefully you change your mind and become a criminal defense attorney instead of a prosecutor.
It's doubtful, but I'll let you know. Thank you so much for being on the show. Guys, I will definitely make sure to link all of Arash's information down below. Please make sure to check out his podcast, and especially the one that I'm on, obviously. That'll be linked below for you as well as soon as it's uploaded. So thank you guys, and God bless.